The black envelope. Evan Matthews lived a quiet life in the suburbs, his days marked by a routine and an unassuming sense of normalcy. He worked as a graphic designer from his modest home office, enjoyed coffee on his porch each morning, and rarely deviated from his predictable schedule. But one Friday morning, as he stepped outside to collect his mail, he found something that would shatter the monotony of his life: a black envelope, sleek and unmarked, sitting atop the usual stack of bills and flyers. Curious, Evan tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with neat, typed words: "Turn on your porch light at 8 p.m. No explanation, no signature. Just the instruction. He turned the paper over, searching for some clue to its origin, but there was nothing else. Dismissing it as a prank, he crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. That evening, as Evan settled into his couch with a beer and a movie, he glanced at the clock. It was 7:58 p.m. The memory of the note tickled the back of his mind. He chuckled to himself, still convinced it was some neighborhood kid messing around. But as the clock struck 8, an inexplicable unease settled over him. Without thinking too much, he got up, walked to the front door, and flipped the porch light on. The next morning, the envelope was back, identical to the first. This time, the note read, "Do not take your usual route to the grocery store today." A chill ran down his spine. How could anyone know his habits so intimately? He decided to follow the instruction, taking a detour that added 10 extra minutes to his trip. Later that evening, as he scrolled through the news, he froze. There had been a major accident on his usual route that morning. A truck had run a red light, causing a devastating pile-up at the exact time he would have been there. By now, Evan was both rattled and intrigued. The black envelopes appeared every Friday without fail, always containing a single instruction. Some were innocuous, like "Leave a glass of water on your porch tonight." Others were stranger, like "Write the name David Keller on a piece of paper and burn it." But every time he followed the instructions, the next day seemed to validate their importance. A flood warning was issued the night he left, the glass of water outside, and his yard remained the only one untouched by the rising waters. As for the name David Keller, Evan couldn't find any connection to himself, but he couldn't shake the feeling that burning that name had somehow shifted something in the air.
Weeks turned into months. The envelopes became the axis around which Evan's life revolved. He stopped questioning them and began to anticipate their arrival. But the unease never left him. Who was sending these notes? And why had they chosen him? The tasks grew more complex, demanding more of his time and effort. He was instructed to dig a hole in his backyard and bury an old photograph of himself. Another time, he was told to place a chair facing the corner of his living room and leave it there overnight. Each action felt like a piece of a puzzle he couldn't quite see. One Friday, the note inside the envelope was different. It said, "Do not open the door tonight, no matter what you hear." Evan's heart raced as he read the words. That evening, as he sat in his living room, the tension was unbearable. At exactly midnight, a soft knock came at the door. His blood ran cold. The knock came again, louder this time. He gripped the arms of his chair, frozen. Whoever or whatever was on the other side began to speak, their voice low and pleading. "Evan, please. I need your help. Open the door." The voice sounded familiar, but Evan couldn't place it. He stayed rooted in his seat, heart pounding, until the voice faded away. The knocking stopped. The next morning, Evan opened his door to find scratch marks on the wood and another black envelope on the porch. This one read, "You made the right choice." For the first time, Evan felt a flicker of something beyond fear, something like anger. He wanted answers. He decided to set up a camera to catch whoever was leaving the envelopes. The following Friday, he reviewed the footage, expecting to see a person. Instead, the screen showed the envelope simply appearing on his porch, as if materializing out of thin air. His breath hitched. This was no prank. Something far beyond his understanding was at play. Evan tried to walk away, to ignore the envelopes and reclaim his life. But the moment he skipped an instruction, the consequences were immediate and severe. One Friday, the note read, "Leave your bedroom window open tonight." He refused, bolting the window shut. The next morning, he woke to find the room filled with dead birds, their tiny bodies littering the floor, as if they had tried to get in and failed. He realized there was no escape. The envelopes had become a part of him, as essential as his beating heart. The tasks grew darker. He was told to visit an abandoned house on the edge of town, to leave a bouquet of white lilies on the doorstep. Another time, he was instructed to call an unfamiliar number and say, "It's done," before hanging up. The weight of his obedience crushed him, but disobedience was not an option.
One Friday, the envelope contained a single, ominous instruction: Prepare for the end. Evan stared at the words, his hands trembling. What end? He spent the day in a haze of dread, unable to eat or think clearly. When night fell, he locked himself inside his house, every light blazing. As the clock struck midnight, the world outside fell eerily silent. The hum of the refrigerator, the chirping of crickets, even the sound of his own breathing seemed to vanish. And then, the knocking began.